The city of Portland, Oregon, erupting into its 50th consecutive night of protests last night. Demonstrators outside a federal building dispersed by Homeland Security agents using tear gas and flash grenades. Local and city officials say the presence of federal officers is escalating the violence and that the city would be safer without them. Here's the mayor a short time ago.
Last week, we were seeing the de-escalation of the violence. We were seeing things calm down, but the intervention of federal officers reignited tensions.
Acting Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security Ken Cuccinelli joins me now. What do you say to the mayor and the governor of Oregon, both of whom are saying federal troops should not be there?
Well, of course, you mean federal officers. And look, they have utterly failed at the first job of government, and that is to maintain public safety. And they're looking for someone to blame. And who do they blame? They always want to blame the president. And the reality is we've seen all around the country where you advance responsible policing in the face of violence, the violence recedes. That has been true across the country. And Mayor Wheeler's comments, he's making up reality there. He wants to tell you that things were calming down in Portland after 45 straight days of violence. And suddenly, the fact that people showed up and actually enforced the law in the area of our jurisdiction, near the federal courthouse, for instance, somehow ratcheted up the violence. Well, we are determined at President Trump's leadership to ratchet down the violence, to bring peace not just to Portland, but to as many cities as we can. State and local officials have most of the responsibility, but where we can step in and advance the cause of peace in the streets, the president has insisted to us that we should do that.
Mayor Ted Wheeler also had this to say in those remarks made just a short time ago. Listen.
The words and actions from President Trump and the Department of Homeland Security have shown that this is an attack on our democracy. Keep your troops in your own buildings or have them leave our city.
An attack on our democracy. That's pretty strong stuff. How do you respond?
Well, there are people attacking our democracy, and they're in the streets of Portland with the encouragement of Mayor Wheeler, and they get to roam free, by and large, without consequence. Some of them are getting arrested, small numbers. We're doing our part on the federal side, but we don't have jurisdiction over the whole city, of course. You look back at Mayor Wheeler's history in Portland, he encouraged and allowed attacks on an ICE facility there 2 years ago. Seems like he regretted that, as if it was a mistake after the fact, but here we see him repeating it in the streets of Portland again for the last 7 weeks, where he's encouraged these folks to come out and use the legitimate concerns following the George Floyd murder to mask violence, looting, and not protesting. I mean, let's be really clear. That's not what these people are coming to do. They're coming to attack our democracy at its base. They don't respect elections, they don't respect the law, and they want to tear it all down. And Mayor Wheeler is right there with them.
But our DHS officers, are they only guarding federal buildings, or have they moved out into the streets to sort of clear streets? One of the complaints is that they are using tear gas, which under Oregon law right now is not to be used against some of these crowds.
So we have jurisdiction that starts with an organization in the Department of Homeland Security called Federal Protective Service. They're responsible for protecting federal buildings, and CBP and ICE and other law enforcement officials from around the Department of Homeland Security are there to support the FPS. And if you see pictures of the courthouse, you see the graffiti, the violence directed at federal officers. They are there to protect federal property, to protect federal officers, as best we can to coordinate with the Portland Police Bureau. to the extent those officers are allowed to cooperate in trying to keep the peace. That doesn't mean we're confined to federal property per se. We have arrested people for attacks on both the property and law enforcement officials off the property because our jurisdiction allows us to do that. But federal jurisdiction doesn't go everywhere. The local authorities like Mayor Wheeler and like the governor of Oregon are going to have to finally pick up their responsibilities and actually reestablish peace. We can only do so much of it. America's a big place, and the federal government, even though DHS is the largest law enforcement agency in the country, still only has so many. And so we will do what we can where we can to reestablish peace, as we're doing in Portland.
Left, but
sure.
Just a few seconds left, but how long do you expect your officers to be there?
We expect our officers to be there and arresting violent criminals as long as they're coming out with the intent of committing violence in and around in Portland and where we have jurisdiction, however long this goes.
Ken Cuccinelli, the acting Deputy Homeland Security Secretary, thanks very much for coming on.